All right, we're going to talk about solving inequalities now. In the last video, we kind of talked about what an inequality is. So now we're going to talk about solving one. And we're going to start with our very basic one step, and then we'll move into multi-step. So just a refresher, we use an open circle for when we have less than. So like x less than 3. And when we're doing this, we always, with less than, we're going to shade to the left. Greater than was another one we'd use an open circle for, so x greater than -2. And again, with greater than, we're going to shade to the right. Okay, closed circle is when we have equal to. These are numbers that are included in our set. Okay, so x less than or equal to -4, we would use a closed circle at -4, shading to the left because we're less than. And x greater than -7 or greater than 7. Again, we're going to use a closed circle and we're going to shade to the right because it's greater than. So pay attention to the direction. Now, we have a rule. If we are going to multiply or divide by a negative number, we need to we're going to multiply or divide by a negative number on both sides. So if we're solving and then I'm going to have to flip the inequality sign. So like this one here, I'm going to follow the same steps I would if I'm dividing by a -2 on both sides, because that's what I'd have to do to solve. It's just like solving an equation. -2 divided by x. That cancels out there, so I get x. And 6 divided by -2 is a -3. But because I divided by that negative, I have to flip my inequality sign. Okay, swapping sides. Just remember, if my x is on the right side, you want to flip it so that way your x is on the left, so it's easier to graph that inequality. We can't determine the way we're graphing by just looking at the point unless my x is on the left or my variable is on the left. Okay, so ideally it's always good to have your variable on the left side. Or you have to think about it in terms of I have to do its opposite if my variable is on the right. All right, so now let's actually get into solving inequalities. So when we're solving inequalities, follow the exact same steps as solving equations. It is basically an equation. It just does not have an equal sign. Okay, it has an inequality symbol. So inequalities work almost identical, minus the one rule we talked about where we have to flip the sign if we multiply or divide by a negative. So right here, I've got x plus 2 less than 6. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to subtract 2 from both sides of my inequality symbol. We can kind of draw that same line we did before with equations at the inequality symbol, if that helps you determine the sides. Okay, so I'm subtracting 2, so that gives me x less than, well, 6 minus 2 is 4. So I also have to graph this. So we're going to determine, do I have an open or a closed circle? Well, it's less than, it's not equal to. So that tells me I'm going to have an open circle. And since x is less than 4, I'm shading to the right. Okay. Let's look at another one. I've got x minus 5 greater than 1. Well, since 5 is minusing to the x, I'm going to add 5 on both sides. And so x is greater than 6. So this means I'm going to have an open circle at 6. And since it's greater than, I'm shading to the right. All right, we've got 3x less than or equal to 6. So 3 is multiplying to x, so I have to do its opposite, which is to divide. So we get 3, or no, not 3, sorry, x is less than or equal to, well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we've got x is less than or equal to 2. So this means I'm going to have a filled in circle at 2. It's less than, so I'm shading to the left. Okay, n over 4 greater than 1. Well, 4 is dividing to the end, so to do its opposite, I have to multiply both sides by 4. So n becomes greater than, well, 1 times 4 is 4. Since it's greater than, we're going to do an open circle. And greater than shades to the right. Okay, let's talk about a fraction one here. I've got 2/5 d greater than or equal to 10. Oops. So remember how we get rid of a fraction is we flip the fraction. So the bottom number comes to the top number comes to the bottom, and we multiply both sides. So I get d is greater than or equal to, well, 10 times 5 is 50, and 50 divided by 2 is 25. So d is greater than or equal to 25. So on my number line, I'm going to put 25. Okay, we're having a filled in circle because it's greater than or equal to. And since it's greater than, I'm shading to the right. All right, just a reminder, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, so the number with the variable is negative, then we are going to flip the inequality sign. So like this one here, I've got negative 3x is less than 18. My 3 is negative. So when I go to divide by a negative 3, I have to flip that inequality sign. So x becomes greater than negative 6. So I'm going to have an open circle shaded to the right. All right, we'll look at one more. N over negative 4 is greater than negative 11. So we are multiplying by a negative number here. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by the negative 4 here. And I'm doing that to both sides. So I have to flip my inequality sign. And negative 11 times negative 4 gives me a positive 44. Oops, I'm going to move this here. So I'm going to put an open circle since it's less than. And I'm shading to the left. Now, I want to look at this one here. Notice this one is very similar to our previous one. With the big difference here is this is not negative. I am not going to flip the sign. Okay, the 11 is negative, yes, but that does not matter. So I'm still going to follow the same steps as I did before, but this time I end up with a negative 44. And because the 4 is not negative, which is what we're multiplying by, then I am not going to flip the inequality sign. So it is only the number that is with the variable. If that is negative, when we are multiplying or dividing, then we would flip the sign. So this one here, negative 44, I'd have an open circle because it's greater than, and I'm shading to the right. All right, that is all for that video. We're going to move on into multi-step in the next video.